Okay, how's it going, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Okay, well, so in today's episode, I thought I'd try to say something about some of the possible effects of AI when it comes to human fulfillment and meaning. But I want to do so by way of the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle. Okay, so before I get into I want to first talk a bit about Aristotle and his view on three hugely important and related activities in life, because I think that the definitions he makes and the sorts of distinctions he draws will be helpful later when discussing the imagined impact of AI in our lives. Okay, so in his books, The Politics and the Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle makes a distinction between three sorts of activities, namely relaxation, leisure, and work. Now, just to say it at the outset here, Aristotle thinks that of the three, leisure is actually the greatest and the most important of all of them. And it turns out that this is absolutely crucial to understanding what human happiness and human actualization is all about for him. But before I get to that, let me first talk about the nature of and the connection between relaxation and work. Okay, so for Aristotle, it's clear that work has greater value than relaxation does. And by the way, by relaxation, we can think of things like spending time watching our screens or sun tanning on the beach or something like that. Anyway, so work has greater value because it's the very reason that we relax. Or to put it another way, relaxation is a means to the higher end of work, not the other way around. We don't work to relax, says Aristotle. Okay, so for Aristotle then, without work, there'd be no relaxation. In fact, if we relaxed without the prospect of work, then relaxation for him becomes meaningless. And again, this is because the reason that we ultimately relax is in order to get back to work. Actually, this is why we often get bored when we relax. It's because we're without the very thing that motivates us, which is work. So for this reason, Aristotle would say that relaxation is without much intrinsic value. That is, we don't really do it for itself, but we do it for a purpose outside of it, which is work. In fact, I think that there's strong anecdotal evidence that there's something insufficient about relaxation itself, and that's because so many of us, when we relax, we don't really want to continue to relax. We don't want more and more and more of it. No, it has a limit. We've had enough of it after a short period of time. And we've had enough of it, not just because it gets boring after a while, but because we recognize that it's time to get back to the more important business of work. Okay, well now you might wonder where leisure fits in with all of this, because here's the thing. Most of us probably conflate leisure with relaxation, right? We think that they're just two different words describing pretty much the same thing. In other words, a life of leisure for us could very well mean spending our days sailing on a yacht or sipping margaritas on the beach. Well, okay, so this is absolutely not how Aristotle understands leisure. No, in fact, for him, if you're spending all your time doing those sorts of things, the sorts of things that actually constitute relaxation, then what you're doing is you're actually wasting your leisure time. Okay, well, so now what is leisure exactly? And how is it related to both relaxation and to work? Well, in terms of its connection to these other two activities, leisure is ultimately what they are both for. So I said earlier that relaxation is a means to the higher end of work, right? Well, work too is actually a means. It's a means to what turns out to be the greatest good, the greatest purpose or the highest end, namely leisure. Actually, it turns out that leisure then for Aristotle is the only activity out of the three of them that is an end in itself. In other words, it's something that we do for its own sake and not for anything else. It has no function and no purpose outside of itself. And by the way, for Aristotle, when something is an end in itself, that's a sign of its importance or value. Well, okay, so that's leisure's place in the hierarchy of these activities. It definitely takes top place. But now, what is it exactly, and how does it contribute to human fulfillment? Well, as I said, leisure, according to Aristotle, is not about watching TV or lying around or some such thing. No, what it involves are the so-called higher human pursuits, like appreciating music, or engaging in the arts, or reading philosophy or science, and in general, learning to recognize and participate in all that is beautiful and good and true in life. So leisure doesn't consist of idleness and amusements and distractions like relaxation does. Although, as I said earlier, these do have their necessary place. No, leisure for Aristotle is where we truly actualize ourselves, where we realize our potential as human beings. Now, you might be thinking, well, what about work? I mean, surely that's important, right? Well, yeah, of course it is. It's absolutely necessary in life. But for Aristotle, that's a matter of something more like our biological survival. We need to work in order to sustain our survival. But leisure, well, that's different. That's something that we need if we want to sustain what it is that makes us uniquely human. It has nothing to do with the practicalities of mere survival. You see, as human beings, we have this potential to enrich our souls and minds in ways that other beings can't. And only leisure makes this possible. So for Aristotle, it's leisure, not work and not relaxation, that gives us meaning in life and gets the very best out of us, and ultimately gives us the highest form of happiness. Okay, well, so that's Aristotle's view, very superficially. But now let me go on to the topic of AI in our lives. And I don't mean in any comprehensive way, by the way. But you see, one of the things that I hear over and over again is how great it is and how great it's going to be if AI, well, it doesn't destroy us first, of course, but how great it's going to be that we'll be able to outsource all of our activities and projects to AI. You know, AI will write our emails and all of our forms of communication, and it'll write our essays, and it'll summarize great works of literature for us, and it'll write books for us, and it'll write poetry for us, and it'll design paintings for us, it'll create our music, it'll edit our photos, it will drive our cars, it will do our math, and it will even identify galaxies for us. And so on and so on it goes with the contracting out of most of our distinctively human capacities and activities. Now, it's said that this will be so wonderful because this will free us up to do exactly what we want, right? But here's the question. Do what exactly? What's left to do? Well, you know what? I know what there is to do. If I can't write a book myself or learn some math myself or design or paint something on my own, I know what there is to do. I can spend my days on some beach drinking margaritas. Well, notice something here. Notice what seems to have happened here, if in fact something like this happens. What's happened is that our lives are now marked by pure relaxation in Aristotle's sense, as I've described it earlier. And we've given up most of what constitutes leisure, namely both those useful and creative soul-filling activities that make us who we are and provide us with meaning or purpose in life. Actually, this so-called AI utopia reminds me a bit of the film Wall-E, where the humans there have taken off for a comfortable life in outer space, where their technological achievements and their voracious need for consumption have turned them into fat, mindless blobs who can barely stand and move around on their own. These people, they live on some space station where they spend their time sitting in front of screens, being moved around and cleaned and fed by robots, unable to think or act for themselves. Anyway, so back to what I was saying. So I guess what I'm partly trying to say is that in our pathological exuberance for technology and its promise of providing a life of minimal friction for us, I think sometimes we forget what it is that actually constitutes a worthwhile and an interesting life. Sure, maybe writing some class of emails. Maybe they can be outsourced to AI. And the work of call centers. Yeah, sure, those too. And of course, there are many other things as well, but here's the thing. There is a slippery slope here, isn't there? How far do we go in this direction before all the little things that we let AI do for us leaves us feeling empty and useless and disengaged? Personally, I want to do the work of writing a letter or editing my own paper or writing my own book. I couldn't care less if AI can do it faster or more effectively. I love the little daily struggles, the details, and the learning process. I want to do my own dishes and I want to take out my own garbage. So I would argue that the meaning of the human condition is not just to be found in the big creative things, but also in the little everyday mundane tasks that make up our day. As Heraclitus said, there are gods even in the kitchen. In other words, we must ennoble and cherish and not expel the so-called mundane aspects of existence. Ultimately, my fear is that bit by bit, we are going to be, in effect, outsourcing our very humanity to AI. And that's scarier than anything else that could happen. But let's remember something. Let's remember that this trend of outsourcing, it actually started a long time before AI. I mean, think about it. We outsource the raising of our children to nannies, and the care of our parents to institutions, and the walking of our dogs to dog walkers, and the decorating of our kitchens to designers. And when we have to get someone else to walk our dog, when that task becomes a burden that impinges on what we think could be a much more effective and meaningful life, well, then forsaking the rest of it for the AI utopia to come is no problem at all. Bye for now.